Hello, welcome to Ham Radio University 2022. I'm Tom, KA2D, Vice President of the Long Island DX Association. And this is Introduction to DX, basically geared to newbies and people that maybe are licensed and haven't stuck their toe into the DX world. And what we're going to cover today is basically basics of DXing, tips for finding and working a DX, basic station requirements, some logging and QSLing, and some of the DX awards. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you this great video by Ralph K0IR, and it will explain DX in a real simple way. The video is a little outdated, but you'll see what it is. So just stand by and away we go.
One of the fascinating aspects of amateur radio is working DX. It's thrilling, challenging, you'll make some amazing friends, and it's not difficult to get started. When you sit down at your station, the question will be, where in the world will I go today? DX means distance, typically intercontinental contacts, like between North America and Europe, North America and Asia, or Asia and Australia. It's the thrill of those distant contacts that excites us. You hear a signal, tune it in, call the station, and the adventure begins. You may find yourself talking to someone in a large city like Perth in Western Australia, to a sheep farmer in the Falkland Islands, someone stationed at an Antarctic base, to an amateur radio operator at an old whaling station on South Georgia Island, or someone in a small village in the Kingdom of Bhutan. My friend Jorge in Colombia would enjoy a conversation with you. Learn about his country, its people, its history, its resources, and its cities. Perhaps you'll contact Nodir in Tajikistan. This is a country with one of the world's best kept secrets, beautiful, rugged backcountry scenery. You're likely to find amateur radio operators from Japan on the air nearly every day. My friend Hiro is likely to be one of them. Need a contact with Africa? My friend Neil would be happy to oblige. He'll have lots of adventure stories to share with you, both from inside and outside Africa. Perhaps your next contact will be with the land of the long white cloud, New Zealand. Lee, ZL2AL, would love to tell you about New Zealand. A land of lush mountainsides, high desert, unique geology, geothermal energy, a magnificent coastline, and beautiful alpine lakes. But wait a minute, you say. Wouldn't it be easier to make distant contacts with my cell phone or in a chat room? But why swim across the English Channel when you could take a boat? Why climb a mountain when you can take a helicopter to the top? Why go on a bike trail when you can drive by car? And there are other interesting challenges unique to amateur radio DXing. The activity of our sun and its sunspots influence radio communication. Some of these areas of intense magnetic activity are larger than our planet. Resultant radiation and particle streams from the sun interact with Earth's magnetic field, effect ionization in our atmosphere, and may enhance or degrade radio communication. Understanding the process will enhance your DXing skills. Your contacts with new countries and entities become like a rare coin to a coin collector or a rare stamp to a stamp collector. But how about those places on Earth where there are no amateur radio operators to contact? Places where there may not even be any people? That's where DXpeditions come into play. For example, the icebound uninhabited island of Peter I lies below the Antarctic Circle. Putting it on the air requires a DXpedition team to go there. To access this island requires a helicopter to bring everything and everyone ashore. Shelters must be built and the camp established. All this needs to be done within weather windows. Then guys like these bundle up and hand out worldwide contacts with Peter I. Signy Island in the South Orkneys is somewhat easier to access, but still in Antarctic Treaty territory. Once again, amateur radio operators worldwide follow the DXpedition's progress and vie for the coveted contacts. Would you like it hot? Try the steep, barren rock called Malpela off the coast of Colombia. Getting on this rock is not easy. First you're hoisted, and then you climb. Finally, the team reaches its operating site and makes an amazing 195,000 contacts with other ham operators around the world. In January of 2014, a DXpedition team sailed from Western Australia with only seabirds for company and sunsets for variety. Their destination? A small dot in the middle of the Indian Ocean, Amsterdam Island. After 9 days at sea, covering 1,900 nautical miles, they arrived. The team landed, set up their stations, worked around the clock, and stayed on the air for just over 2 weeks. They made just over 170,000 contacts, giving many radio amateurs a new country contact. These are the 14 men who ventured to Amsterdam to hand out those contacts, and so enjoyed saying hello to old friends and making so many new friends through amateur radio and DXing. We all enjoy the chase and the challenge of DX, but what endures is the friendships we forge. Thanks to DXing and DXpeditions, we have lifelong friends all over the world. I ask you, how do you top that?
Okay, that'll give you hopefully some incentive about what DX is, what it can do, all the different facets of it. And there's nothing like the thrill of going into a pileup with hundreds of people calling the station and hearing your call come back, whether it's voice, CW, or digital. So DXing, where is it? Okay, it's on all the bands from 160 through 6 meters, depending on your station and antenna setup. It also includes the walk bands, which is a lot of fun. Not so crowded, or I should say, used to be not so crowded. All the different modes, of course, CW, sideband, and of course all the digital modes. DXpeditions, like you saw, not so much lately with the COVID shutdown, but there's still some stations out there. Contesting is a good way if you're looking for awards to get a lot of stations in a short period of time. And of course, the DX spotting cluster is a fantastic tool for spotting and keeping track of DX stations. Also gives you a good overall picture of various propagation by the stations that are spotted and who they're spotted by. The conditions for DXing. Well, the current cycle is on a rise, okay? And you get that information basically. There's a lot of information on the internet or WWV, and here's some of the general seasonal conditions. In winter, all the bands are active, not a problem. In the springtime, 40 through 6, summer, 20 through 6, fall, 40 through 10, and that depends on the time of the day. Early morning, 80 through 20. Mid-morning to mid-afternoon, 20 through 10. Late afternoon to sunset, 40 through 10. Nighttime to early morning, 160 through 40. And for DXing on 160, 80, think sunrise, sunset, meaning, for instance, our maybe midnight would be sunrise into Europe. So on 160 and 80, you get a nice European opening. And basically around early morning for us, our sunrise, the South Pacific, Australia, New Zealand would come in, and that's called gray line propagation. There's a lot of things that you need to know, and we call it DX etiquette. And the main thing, and it's something that everybody has to learn. I think we all, as new operators, had to learn this, is to listen, listen, listen. Okay, a DX station comes in, and depending on its popularity or rarity, or even if he's simply just a loud station, you need to listen before you call them. Okay, are they working simplex or split, meaning they're transmitting on one frequency and listening on the other? Are they calling for a specific part of the globe area, like CQDX Europe? They call CQDX North America, CQJA, you know, rarer station because they follow their propagation, would be calling certain parts of the world to maximize their QSO rate. So you need to listen, and if they're not calling your particular area, kind of listen and don't call. The rarer stations, like these DXpeditions or just a rarer station, will always work split, meaning they're transmitting on one frequency and listening on the other. And they'll let you know, they'll call, for instance, so on and so forth, you know, 3Y0PX, listening up. He might say 5 to 10, he might say 5 to 20, or on CW, he may say just up, okay? And it's up to you to know how to operate your radio. And again, this practice makes it easier for them to maximize their QSO rate. And it also makes for your listening pleasure, so you don't get a lot of stations calling on top of them, okay? And you never tune up on a DX frequency. Very impolite. Some of the resources, of course, are the DX spotting clusters, like DX Summit, which is the granddaddy of all of them. There's a lot of local clusters in and around. You can check with your local DX clubs, or basically most of the logging programs now have a file that has all the local thing. Propagation forecasts, you get it from the ARRL, and there's DX websites. Most of the DX websites, when you click on them, like DX News and so on, will have a little box with the conditions of the day. Also, there's local clubs have email reflectors, and there's, like I mentioned, DX websites like DX News is very popular. There's a bunch of DX newsletters. There's the 425 DX News, which comes out of Italy. It's a weekly newsletter and also a weekly calendar. There used to be the Ohio DX Pen newsletter, which recently has gone QRT. That dates back into the late 80s, and that's been retired as of this year. Very sad to see that one go. There's a paid prescription called the Daily DX Newsletter, by W3UR, and you can see his URL on my screen. And then there's the weekly DX bulletin from the ARRL, basically which gleans information from the various other news agencies. And that's comes out weekly on Thursday, I believe it comes out. So these are all the resources of where you can find. And just to give you a fast idea, for instance, you get the DX News calendar along with the DX News, and you say, okay, I need this station, this station, this station. My old practice was to highlight them, basically look them up. If they now, most of the DX stations have websites with some sort of propagation when they're going to be listening to your particular area, and you make sure that you can be QRV on those frequencies at no times. And even with a very modest station, you can make contact with them. Logging, very important. Computer logging is really highly recommended. And we covered that in a previous program, which by the end of the month will be available on recording. The availability to track contacts for the awards in QSLing is invaluable. And of course, when you log, no matter how you log it, all the dates and times must be in UTC, and that's universal worldwide. When it comes to QSLing, and this could be a simple chore or a great chore, but one of the things you do when you're requesting a card, whether it's stateside from a DX station or a DXpedition, okay, you always include the proper return postage. All the dates and the times must be in UTC. And the other thing is you design your card so it's easy to read, makes it simple for the manager or the DX station or the guy that's giving you your Worked All States Award to simply open up the envelope, look at your card, look up in his log, and read it. So again, some of the cards you'll see are very, very busy with all kinds of crazy graphics and so on, and they're very beautiful, except they're very hard to read. There's bureau cards. We, in our area, W2, our local incoming bureau is sponsored by the North Jersey QSL service, completely volunteer organization. And the ARRL HQ for outgoing, if you're ARRL member. There are also other QSL services that you can look up online, but those are the ones that we particularly use here. The electronic one, which makes it very, very simple, is QDURE, which is electronic QSL service. It's very easily done. What it does is from your logging file, you export a ADIF text file, you send it to the QDRE people, and they will print a QSL card and send it to the outgoing QSL bureaus. On their service, they have a provision where you can design your own card. You can design many different cards for whatever is your desire. And again, the cost is approximately the same as if you got your QSL cards printed both sides from a QSL dealer. So it's a very nice service, makes a high volume QSLing very, very simple and very nice. There's also QRZit.com, EQSL Club Log. And you just have to remember that not all of these services qualify for the various awards, mainly ARRL DXCC, which requires either a logbook of the world or direct printed QSL cards. There's a lot of awards, mainly the ARRL DXCC, which is the gold standard. There's 340 DXCC entities. They used to be called DXCC countries, but because a lot of these entities are, as you saw in the video, rare places where there's really no human people that actually live there. Again, like Amsterdam Island, Heard Island, Peter the One, and hopefully coming up some of the upcoming DXpeditions like Beauvais Island. So there's worked all zones. Okay, that means you work all the 40 zones in the world. You can work all continents. It's WAC. There's islands on the air, which is from the British RSGB. There's somewhat over 1,000 islands that qualify all over the world. A lot of fun to also work IOTAs. For those of us that live on Long Island here in our home territory, we actually are an island. We're North America 026, called the New York State Islands. So a lot of fun. And just recently, and really not for DXing, but there's chasing national parks on the air, which is also another fun activity. Here's some of some good tips to learn and help you in DXing. Definitely upgrade to extra class so you have a full complement of frequencies and modes. Learn CW. Why do I say that? A lot of the DX like to operate CW only. And you don't have to be a crackerjack CW operator. What you need to practice to listen for your particular call sign at a very high rate of speed and be able to send the exchange, whether it's electronically or via your favorite keying device. I suggest subscribing to Logbook of the World. A very nice way to do it. It simplifies the application to getting your DXCC and other awards as they keep adding to it. Definitely, if available in your area, join a DX club where you get to hang out and talk to people of likewise. You'll have newbies, more experienced guys that can share some tips, help you with station setup, antenna questions, and so on and so forth, so that you don't have to experiment and waste some valuable resources in setting up a thing, although it is fun to trial and error. Subscribe to a DX newsletter or two, like I mentioned, the 425 DX News, which is an excellent daily, weekly newsletter with a lot of good information and they're very well informed. Optimize your station. And what that means is you do the best that you can on the budget, your property, XYL approved, and so on and so forth. You know, whether it's some wire antennas, a nice 100-watt transceiver, and don't be intimidated by the big guns. Something you'll learn, you learn in your local area who's the big gun in the area, and when you go into chase a rare DX station, if the big gun has been calling them for a couple of hours, you can just kind of listen and wait for your turn. Operate smart, okay? You study and apply propagation theory, as we mentioned. There's a lot of tools on the internet to do that. A lot of the organized DXpeditions now will have propagation charts to kind of simplify when you need to listen and call. I didn't include this with the slide, but there's a program that I've been using for a long, long time. It's a W6EL propagation. It's a very nice tool, simple program. It does work on Windows, but it's, you have to run it in a compatibility mode, but it's a nice thing to learn when to listen for various stations from different parts of the world. Determine the DX listening pattern if he's split. Okay, and what that means is, for instance, on phone, he'll say, I'm listening up. So if you have the capability, you have to, in your receiver, you figure, is he staying on about one frequency and working 3 or 4 people and then moving his VFO up or down? This way you can figure out where to call in that. The newer radios that have pan adapters makes it a little simpler because you can see the pattern on a monitor. Be patient, okay? There's times when the propagation, I call it the propagation guards, are not so kind. But again, sometimes you call and call and call, you don't get the guy. You come back a couple of hours later and one call, boom, and he tells you, wow, you're 5.9 plus, plus, plus. And you say to yourself, God, I've been calling you for an hour. So again, these are some of the nice tips. With that, we'll start to ask for some questions. I know we have a lot of time left over. We really went through this very quickly. So George, if you have any questions, you can start, and hopefully I'll have an answer for them.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Hi, everybody. One person wanted to know if a DX station does not say to go elsewhere to respond, can you transmit on the same frequency?
Yes. In other words, I'll give you an example. Mostly every day up and around 14,240, whatever, you'll hit I call it the S51 brothers. There's S57DX, S51DX. I happy to use them as the 20-meter propagation people. But anyway, they're up around whatever your local time is for Slovenia. And they will be operating simplex. They're very good operators. A lot of times they'll have many people calling them because they have a very loud signal. But if they don't say I'm listening up, basically they're going to be simplex.
Okay, a follow-up question to that. If you do go up to call the DX station, how do you hear the DX station when he responds to confirm the call? Do you have to keep switching back and forth between the two frequencies?
Okay, that is a very good question. The older receivers or the older transmitters didn't have the capability of split frequency operation. So you either needed an external VFO to do it. The modern transceivers, and I would say in the last 20 years by modern, okay, have a capability of working split frequency, and there's 2 ways of doing it. Some of the transceivers, you will have a button A equals B. So say the frequency is 14,195, typical phone DX. So you hit A equals B, and that will put both of your VFOs on the same frequency. The next, they will have so you would go to your VFO B and kind of turn your dial to listening up 5 or 10 or whatever, or even use your RIT button. Most of the modern transceivers have what they call dual watch, where you have controls for both the transmit frequency, which is VFO A, and then VFO B, which is your listening frequency, or where you are going to transmit. So, for instance, so it's 14,195. You hit A equals B. You hit on your transmitter that you're going to transmit on 14,200. Okay, and depending on your headphone setup, most of the transceivers have stereo receive. So one ear is going to be VFO B and one ear is going to be VFO A. Makes it very simple to work the DX. A lot of the newer transceivers may not have the second VFO, but they have a control where you would hold a button down to transmit on 14,200, and that's how that's done. You need to know how to work your transmitter so that you don't transmit on the DX's frequency. Hopefully that explains it in a simplistic way. But in your radio manual, it will definitely explain how to work split frequency. Very, very important, and makes it much easier to work a DX station instead of having everybody piled up on one frequency. If you get a very strong station calling him, you may not hear him come back to your call.
Okay, if I could just clarify one thing, Tom. When you press the split button, it will transmit on the transmit frequency, but the default is to listen on your receive frequency. So when you key your microphone or hit your key, it transmits on the other frequency that the DX is hopefully listening to. And when you release the push to talk button or release the keying mechanism, if you're using CW already, it comes back to the DX frequency and you'll be able to hear the response. I think that's what the person was asking.
Yes, George, that's a better explanation.
Okay, and if you do want to hear the frequency that you're transmitting on, to hear if other people are also transmitting on the same frequency, then you just switch to 2 or use that dual watch function, correct?
Yes, that is correct. And again, most of the modern receivers make that simple to do. You don't have to actually be switching a lot of manual stuff. And it's important because what you want to do when you're listening to the pileup on the other frequency or your transmit frequency, it's nice to you'll got to listen for his pattern. Like I mentioned before, some of them stay in a small spot for a while until everybody kind of catches up and they create bedlam. And you need to know if he moves up, he moves down. Some of the rarer DX will say I'm listening up 5 on phone, which is default, and because of the intensity of people calling them, will actually start moving all the way up. And sometimes if they're really not watching, they move up 10, 15, 20 kcs. So be aware of that. If you're listening in a certain group and you don't hear anybody, coming back to the DX station, you got to start listening to the people that are starting to come back to them. It's one of the tricks that you learn as you get more experienced.
All right, thank you, Tom. As someone who's been a semi-rare DX station, I will say that from the DX side, when 1 million people call on the same frequency, they don't hear anything. They just hear one tone. So you need to, as a DX person, as a DX station, you need to move so that you can hear or pick out the individual stations calling. And the advantage of that is it allows them to work stations quicker by being able to go back to a single call sign with a full call. What slows down the DX station is if they don't have your full call sign, or if they're hearing too many people at the same time. It's very hard to distinguish. So I have another question related, and that is, what call sign or how should you give your call sign? Wouldn't it be simpler for me to just give my suffix, Tom?
Okay. it's an old practice to give your suffix out, okay? But in the day of computer logging, call signs like the DX station that checked in suggested, full call signs are always, always, always preferred. Also, clear ITU phonetics. You know, sometimes we all get these phonetics that we use on our local nets and so on and so forth. Kind of cutesy for the guys that know who you are. But when you're in a pileup, and like the DX station said, there's many calling in it, and it's a great skill, and we thank those guys for being able to pick people out. It's an unusual skill. So your call signs, for instance, you know, if I went in and I said 2 Delta, you know, it's like, you know, but you know, you need to say your call and you know, not so slow, but not so fast. So, you know, I usually go in Kilo Alpha 2 Delta. Okay, you might say it once, you might say it twice, but no more. And if the station comes back to you, he'll say 2 Delta or the Kilo Alpha. Okay, then you can transmit again. There may be more than one of you guys on there, but the DX station will figure it out and he'll get through you guys. But it's very important for full calls, even if you're a WB2 XYX, okay? Again, he'll, and if he comes back, for instance, he says KA2D Delta, you know, you can say, well, maybe it's a typo, and you give him a call again, and hopefully if that's you, this DX station will clarify. But it's extremely important. And you don't call constantly. You know, you need to call and listen and call and listen, because if you're transmitting and the DX station is calling you, you're not going to hear him calling you. So again, that's why very important to listen, and not to constantly call and call. I know, like on CW or the digital, sometimes it's very easy to keep pushing that button, okay? But you have to come up for air. Hopefully that gives you a good answer.
Yeah, okay, Tom, thank you. I will also mention on CW that if the DX station is going slow, you should try to match their speed. If they're going fast, you should try to match their speed. If I'm going at 30 words a minute and somebody calls me at 10 words a minute, chances are I'm not going to respond. So, and the reverse is true. If I'm going at 10 words a minute and somebody calls me at 30 words a minute, chances are I'm not going to respond. So it's best that you match the speed of the sending station if you're trying to respond on Morse code on CW. There were a couple of other questions and a couple of comments. One person wanted to know the name of the propagation software that you mentioned, if you can give that again.
Yes, it's a W6EL propagation. And again, it may be on EHAM, not sure, but I know it's popular, and sometimes you need to do a little bit of searching because it's a very old program, but it's very simple, and it's in my opinion, for people that aren't very technical. For instance, you know, you punch the station's prefix in that you want to work. Say, you know, you wanted to work Amsterdam Island, and you get the SFI for the day, and it'll give you the long path and short path possibilities of when to listen and work them. And again, a lot of that's been replaced by the major D expeditions have propagation tools on their website that when they're going to listen for North America, W2, et cetera. So it makes a lot of that a lot simpler, but it's something good to learn for just for your own learning propagation. But it's W6EL propagation.
Yeah, and KS2G has mentioned that the link to it is qsl.net/W6ELPROP.
Good, thank you, Mel.
Okay. What is the polite way to break into a long chitty-chatty conversation that two hams are having in order to make a contact?
That varies because sometimes, guys get into a conversation, especially, on, DX to DX or stateside to DX, and they don't leave enough pause for anybody to break in. And that may be on purpose. Maybe they just want to chit chat amongst themselves. Some of the DX stations have the disadvantage of when they do come on the air, they're in a pileup, and maybe they're not in the mood to do pileups that particular time or day, and they just want to have a QSO with an old friend or somebody that's, they're having an interesting conversation comparing various parts of their station. So the best way, like anything politely, is wait for a pause and just drop your call, and hopefully they'll recognize you, and wait till they recognize you. So again, that's the only way to really do it, and to be polite, because again, a lot of the DX stations, when they come on every day, especially like the African stations, they come on and it's instant pileup for hours and hours and hours. Same with some of the like PZ5RA down in Suriname. They come on and it's pileup for hours and hours and hours, until they get tired and just don't answer anybody. So again, if they're in a conversation, you just drop your call once or twice, and hopefully either they'll recognize you, and and again, if they're in a conversation about, say, station equipment or so on and so forth, and you really don't have anything to contribute, I would just listen, and make some notes, and let them do their thing. That's basically what I would do.
Yeah, or wait till the QSO is over and then call the station you wanted to talk to. Okay. Is there a cost for Logbook of the World? And if so, what is the cost for?
Okay. A Logbook of the World is free, and I believe for ARRL members. The only cost is for the DX stations, because they have to mail secure information back and forth. And again, I believe for all ARRL members, Logbook of the World is a free deal.
Okay. Thank you, Tom. When should you call a DX? The question really is, how do you know that the DX can hear you?
You don't. Basically, here's the deal. Again, if a DX station is, if you can hear them, and this is where you need to know your station's capability. For instance, if you have a low dipole, 100 watts, and you're hearing a station S3, S4, and he is not working your particular area of the country or stateside, chances are he's not gonna pick you up. So the question of that is a little tricky. You really need to know your station's capability. You need to know when you're listening is, say for instance, well, we're here on Long Island locally, and he seems to be calling stations in the Midwest or out west, and he doesn't seem to be responding to stations in your local area. You need to sit back and listen, and that doesn't say don't call him, but if you're calling him and you're just not getting in there. And also timing is very, very important. You'll hear a bunch of guys call, and there's always that one person that waits, and they go KA2D, and he comes right back to you and say, how the heck did he do that? And it's basically timing. But again, you really need to know your station capability and where you stand in your pecking order of the stations locally in your area. again, it comes down to a little bit of experience.
Okay, Tom, could you comment on tail ending?
Yes. Some stations prefer that. Some stations, it's the only way to work them, and some stations don't like it because as you're tail ending, he's calling another station, and it's kind of interrupting the QSO rate. So again, you have to listen and see how the DX station likes to operate. If he likes the tail ending, if some stations will take kind of a list, and then he'll, work one after another, 3 or 4 stations at a time. Okay, and tail ending will kind of interfere with the transmission. So again, it's a good practice. But some DX stations don't prefer it because it interrupts their rate and confuses.
Can you describe what tail ending is?
Tail ending is you're say I'm the DX, I go N2GA, and then you drop your call right after I say N2GA59, and you drop your call. Okay, he may or may not like that because it's interrupting N2GA coming back to him, and he might have to repeat the contact with N2GA.
I think I could give a better description. Like if I say KA2D, if I'm the DX, you're 5'9", and then you come back to me and say you're also 5'9", and right at that point, somebody else says, N2MUN, and at that point, the DX could say something like, okay, thanks KA2D, now N2MUN, you're 5'9". That's a tail end.
Yeah, okay, that's good.
Okay, good. I only have one more question. Is Logbook of the World only for ARL members?
That's a good question. I would go on Logbook FAQ. I believe it's available for ARRL members, but I'm not 100% sure. I know the awards are, so that we would have to look that up on the Logbook of the World FAQ.
I don't believe it's just for members, but because they want many people using it, especially DX stations. But I think awards, you may be correct.
Yeah, I believe Logbook of the World is open for everyone, and the awards, the ARRL awards, are for ARRL members. That's part of the membership deal.
Yes. Okay, and one last one. So you don't have to wait until the DX station calls and says QRZ. Well, QRZ is that's not good operating practice anyway. I hate that myself. I mean, why not just say their call sign? But you can listen and see how the DX station is operating in order to drop your call. And I believe the answer to that is yes, but I'll let you respond.
Yes. A lot of the DX stations don't identify as much as they should. Okay, and the reason for that is sometimes you say what's your call, and they'll come back, well, it's on the cluster. But anyway, good DX practice, and also for contesting, is it's much easier, instead of saying just QRZ, just say your call, and then people know who you are, and it's less confusion. So I believe in most recently, the DX stations have figured that out, that they ID almost every call. It's a very good practice. Sometimes they'll go maybe 3 or 4 with if they have a really deep pileup. But the really good experienced operators have found out that after every QSO, instead of saying QRZ or next or whatever, just to say the call. And it's the same as going, thank you, QRZ, next. You just say the call, and it just stops a lot of confusion with the DX spotting clusters. a lot of people have what we affectionately call fat fingers, and they'll mistype or typo somebody's call sign, and it creates an unbelievable amount of confusion, because a guy will work the station and respot it erroneously without knowing a guy's call sign. So again, in both like DX and contesting, accuracy is very, very important, especially now if you typoed the guy's call sign and now you go to get a QSL card and you get the answer back not in the log. And
Right.
yeah, so it's very, very important to make sure whoever you're working, you have the proper call sign. And on the DX side, those guys have figured it out for many, many years, that it's very simple and it keeps the flow of a pileup going when they drop their call frequently, if not after every QSO.
Okay, Tom, thank you very much. We're out of time. I'll let you wrap up and end the webinar. Thanks for everything you did today.
All right, very good. And thanks everybody for joining us. Hopefully we gave you some good insights into DXing. I'm KA2D at optonline.net, and I'll be glad to answer any additional questions. And like I say, 7-3, and I'll see you in the pileups. KA2D out.